जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मागे गाहे तव जय गाथा जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे।
President of SS Society, Dr Vrishali Bhosale ma'am, our directors Devayani ma'am, Rutuja Padmabhushan, Zakir Hussain bhai to inaugurate the open. I think children, now you take over with your Veda Chanting. I now request our President ma'am, Dr Vrishali Bhosale ma'am, to felicitate our guest today. The maestro is getting felicitated with Puneri Pagadi, shawl, what a moment to behold. Our fine arts mentor, Mr Manoj Muneswar, has drawn a portrait for the maestro. I request that to get presented. May I have Manoj sir to please come on the dais along with the portrait. The portrait has reflections of Ustad Allah Rakha, the mentor, the father of the great maestro. We have our student Bhavesh Choudhury from class 11 to present his creation to the icon. Present a small token of admiration. Punecha Raja, Dagduseth Ganapathy to the maestro.
So it would not have been in the conventional sense, wisdom, to imagine that my father would become anyone other than just a farmer or a soldier himself. Yet, he attained greatness beyond knowledge, beyond understanding, as the legendary Ustad Allah Rakha in one lifetime. That is, so I guess I am trying to say the destiny is written. I was fortunate that I was allowed by the Almighty to be born in this house. Just from the very first moment that I remember, my friend, my brother, my sister, my mate, whatever you want to call it, was always a tabla. And so it is possible that tabla chose me and said, well, there you are and there I am, let's be friends forever. And my father always believed, and he told me that every instrument has a spirit inside of it. And you can learn Vidya, but until the spirit inside the instrument decides to accept you, you will only be halfway there. When the spirit accepts you, that's when you know that your path has been laid out for you and that your destiny is defined and that you are now walking in the direction that you're supposed to. So getting the spirit to accept you is half the battle. So I feel that the spirit at some point, when I was maybe 3 or 4 or 5 years old, decided to accept me as a, what they call these days in modern language, BFF. You know what that means? Best friend forever. So Tabla decided to make me its best friend forever, and for that I am forever grateful.
Thank you so much,
for sharing. On stage, we have this fear and fright that we might do something wrong. So in your initial days, did you ever experience stage fright? And how did you battle it at that time?
I still get nervous and worry that I'm going to make a fool of myself on stage. But that's all right. That's okay. I mean, one success is only achieved after 1,000 failures. So, if you want to be successful, you should not be afraid of failing. That's important. So, when I get on stage, I know that there are going to be moments where I'm going to look silly. That there's going to be mistakes galore, and that I'm going to have to grin my way through it and pretend like nothing silly happened. I'm good at that. A lot of us musicians are good at that. So it's never a perfect world. We would never become perfect. That is not the point. That is not even the goal. What is important is to make that journey and do the best you can as you move on. And what you're supposed to do is be the best that you can be today, and just improve upon that best a little bit more tomorrow. And that's basically the move forward. So I never worry about failure. I know legends, great maestros, who perform, and I've seen 10 concerts of the same maestro, and there have been 4 of them which I can never forget. They were so sublime, so amazing. But then there were also 6 that I would rather forget. And it's not because they weren't great or they weren't a legend, but it was because they were attempting to think out of the box. They were attempting to do something different, something not just your everyday package. They wanted to reach for the star. They wanted to take a leap of faith. And when you do that, some days you fly and the leap is successful, and then other days you just fall. And so that is something that I have seen and I've learned from. And the greatest have been embarrassed. And one of the reasons this stayed with me is my personal experience. I was in Nagpur and I was maybe 15 years old. And I was playing in the festival organized in Nagpur. So on the first day of the festival, I sat down to play with a violin maestro. And within 20 minutes of the concert beginning, we were booed off stage. Get off, get off, get off. And I was so heartbroken, so dejected. And I didn't know what to do. And I was afraid because 2 days later I was going to play again with other musicians. And I was very nervous, and I almost was ready to get on the train and come back to Mumbai. But I gutted it out and I got on stage 2 days later. And it was the most amazing concert ever. People were like clapping and going nuts and just appreciating, like, you know, unbelievable appreciation. And so, and then when we finished playing, they asked us to play more. So on the same stage with the same audience, there was an immense failure one day and equally amazing success 2 days later. So you learn from that, and there's no reason and no fear should be inside of you of failure. And so that's the way I approach when I get on stage. I never know what I'm going to do, but I know that I'm going to most definitely fall flat on my face a few times, and that's okay. It's all right, because we are all human, and unless I try for something different, I would not achieve it, and at times trip falling in trying to have that achievement.
Thank you so much for your answer, sir. So I think I speak for everyone when I say that we as young performers find it very difficult to do riyaz regularly. So how did you manage it during your school days, and how is the riyaz of a percussionist different from that of a vocalist?
Well, Riyaz is your constant companion. And by that I don't mean that you sit down with a tanpura or with sitar or tabla or anything. What it means is that it's part of you, your breathing, your thinking, your watching, observing, absorbing, all that. So that is all part of your riyaz. It is my father said that when you hear stories about maestros who practice 14 hours a day or 15 hours a day for 20 years, they did not physically practice 14 hours a day or 15 hours a day. But for 24 hours of the day, their mind was connected to their art. They were always thinking about it. While asleep, they were dreaming about it. And so it was a constant companion and part of their breathing system. And so myself, my riyaz was never, you see, I was very fortunate. My father was not a tyrant when it came to being a teacher. He believed in installing inside of me and my brothers the thought that when I want to play music or practice music, that it should be something that I feel happy and joyous about, that I really want to do it, and that's when I should do it. I should not force myself to sit down at some point to do practice when my mind is not into it. So that, that is a failed practice as far as I'm concerned. So I grew up that way. I would go to school, I would come back, I'd sit down to play, my mom will call me, come and have some tea or nashta, I'll have that, then I'll go back to play. And then some friends would come and I'd go out with them and play cricket and run around the mohalla, just having a fun time, and then come back to the tabla and play tabla. So it was never like I had to sit down and play for 2-3 hours. But all through that time, and even when I was in school and in classroom, my hands were always moving. On the desk, on the book, the hardcover books, they sound great when you practice tabla. And the desk is hollow because you open it like that, put the books inside, and because it's hollow, it sounds great. The low end is fantastic, whichever, it's perfect. So I used to practice and my teacher would regularly throw me out of the class. And then I had to kneel outside the door and watch the class from outside. And that was okay because then I just kind of like this, whatever. But it was always in my mind. My friends would refuse to walk with me because when I was walking, I was singing bowls to the tempo of my walking. So it was all part of, that was all practice, the mind. So the thing is, you can practice your hands or your, if you're a singer, you can, aap apna gala taiyar kar le, sab kuch ho jaye. But if your mind is not working as fast as you can play or sing, how are you going to transfer information to your hands or to your vocal cords at that speed? So your mind has to be first get to that point where at any speed, at any tempo, at any moment or like a millisecond, that it can think of things like a kshan before your hands have to produce it, because that information has to fly out there. So therefore, practicing here, it's all good. But if it's not here, it don't mean a thing if it ain't got the swing, somebody said. So anyway, that's what I mean. So practice is a constant companion, and practice is something that is that should not be a chore, that should not be a burden that you're carrying. It should be a joyful, fun-filled toy that you're going to sit in your playpen and play with, and the world would not matter. That's how it should be.
Thank you for sharing that with us, sir. I have another question. We all know that classical music is an integral part of the Indian dance, Indian culture. You have managed to popularize it across the globe and retain its popularity. How did you manage to do that, sir?
I'm not the culprit. I didn't do that. There were a zillion other great artists who did all the hard work and created the launching pad for us musicians to move forward. And it's never a one man, one person job. It has to be the fraternity that has to be able to provide a collective thought of this knowledge. I mean, Zakir Hussain alone cannot play tabla everywhere. But there has to be people like Vijay Ghate Bhai sitting out over here. Our great maestro Suresh Talwalkar ji, who lives here, and Anindya Chatterjee, and Swapan Choudhury Bhai, and Kumar Bose, and Yogesh Samsi, and all, so many tabla players together collectively lift the, what you may call the book of knowledge that is then shared with the audiences everywhere. So it's not just me alone that, you know, I cannot. Yes, it's true that my name appears on the marquee a lot, that you see me on the billboard, that you see me selling chai somewhere or the other, and so I stand out a little bit more. But believe me, it's a collective job. We all have to do it together. And so I'm not the best tabla player in the world. This is a fact. There is no doubt about it. I am one of the good ones, I'll accept that. But I'm not the best. So all of us together, all these names that I've mentioned, have done an immense amount of work. Pandit Ravi Shankar ji became the most popular Indian musician in his time, great sitar maestro. But there was also Ustad Vilayat Khan Sahab, Ustad Halim Jafar Khan Sahab, Pandit Nikhil Banerjee, Ustad Rais Khan Sahab, Mushtaq Hussain Khan Sahab. There were so many great sitar maestros of their time who did not get the same attention, but their presence and their collective effort brought the sitar, the understanding of that instrument, to a level unseen before. So it wasn't just the Ravi Shankar job, it was everyone else together. Ustad Ali Akbar Khan Sahab, the great Sarod maestro, brought Sarod forward to a certain point, but there was Bahadur Khan Sahab, there was Ustad Amjad Ali Khan Sahab, there is Ustad Amjad Ali Khan Sahab. There are so many great maestros who play. So Pandit Ravi Shankar ji, my father Ustad Allah Rakha, and two more devas of the Holy Trinity of Tabla, Pandit Kishan Maharaj and Pandit Shamta Prasad ji. They actually worked hard. You know, when my father was playing and Pandit Kishan Maharaj ji was playing and Pandit Shamta Prasad ji were playing tabla, accompanying these great maestros, their names weren't even mentioned. There's a great famous thumri of Ustad Bade Ghulam Ali Khan Sahab, Ka Karu Sajni Aaye Na Bala. The original recording tabla is played by my father, Ustad Allah Rakha, but it's not mentioned in the record. But they worked hard, their charisma, their incredible performances brought the understanding of you, the audience, to a point where tabla rose from oblivion to a point where people started to notice it and understand that it has an importance of consequence in a performance of instrumental or vocal music. their hard work, they created that launching pad from where people like me and Ustad Latif Ahmed Khan Sahab or Shankar Ghosh ji and Kanai Datta ji and all of us could launch ourselves, and so things were ready for us. So I'm not the one to be blamed for this incredible surge in popularity of Indian classical music. Again, I must say it's a collective effort. But yes, there has to be somebody who has to be the face. And in his time, Pandit Ravi Shankar ji was the face. People say that in this time I'm the face. And someone else will take over pretty soon. This will happen. And so I'm really very happy that we are at a point where Indian classical art form is well represented, and the bench strength of this classical art form, be it tabla or sitar or sarod or vocal or flute or anything, is really amazing. So I'm not going to sit here and take the blame anymore, but I'm definitely going to pass it on to somebody else. Right, Vijay bhai? Shahana ji? One of the great Tabla Maestros of our time, my brother Mr. Vijay Ghate, is sitting here. And next to him is Shahana ji, who is a very fine sitar maestro. Someday she will give me a chance to play with her. Who's next?
Sir, sir, right from the time I got to know that you are coming to our school and I got the honor to ask you questions, I had this one question in my mind.
Yeah.
Sir, you have been performing since a very long time, and I have heard that you did...
Are you calling me old?
Not old, but very experienced.
Oh, the boy has wit.
So I have heard that you did 150 to 160 concerts in a year.
Yeah.
So is there any one concert or performance that you still cherish? And how did you manage with your riyaz and the performance at that time?
Like I said, the riyaz was a constant companion. So, excuse me. So that was always there, always part of my daily routine. Yes, I did do about, I think the most I did was somewhere around 172 concerts in a year. But there was a blues guitar player. Have you heard of blues? It's not just a color, it's actually a tradition, a form, a musical form. B.B. King. They used to say that he was the hardest working musician alive. And he used to do as many as 280 shows a year. Until he was past his 75th year, he was still doing that. So that is some hell of an achievement. So me doing 170 is nothing. So, but in my younger days, with only one airlines at that time, Indian Airlines, and sometimes on time, most of the times not, it was a little difficult to travel. And there were times when flights used to get cancelled, and so we had to, look around for some other way, maybe 7-hour car ride or 8-hour train ride, running to other places to be able to get to a concert. So it was difficult at that time, but because I was with other musicians when we were traveling, and because I am a musician, and because my instrument was always with me, the focus in my mind, or my mind was focused totally in that world, in the world of art, in the world of music. And so, in fact, I find that when I'm away from the world of music, well, like sometimes I go away to, say, Europe or America, so, and I'm there, and I'm not with a whole bunch of musicians at a time, so I find that there are days when my mind drifts away to other things. More so now than in other times, because now you've got that other hypnotizing thing with you, which is called the cell phone. Ta-da-da, the cell phone. It hypnotizes you. It like, and your eyes are going do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do, and suddenly you've forgotten the world. It's a very dangerous place to be. You've stopped talking to people. You're sitting at the dinner table. You don't even notice your brothers or your sister or your parents, and they're doing the same thing. Everybody's sitting there. Everybody's sitting on the, it's nobody talks to each other anymore. So that's a sad thing. So I find myself sometimes drifting away. You know, Vijay Bhai sometimes sends me a WhatsApp post, a nice share, poetry and whatnot, and then we discuss things on that. But in the meantime, the any gat or toda or paran or chakradar is not part of that discussion. So things do get moved about a little bit. But when I used to travel in the old days, I was either traveling with Pandit Shiv Kumar Sharma ji, or Pandit Hari Prasad Chaurasia ji, or Pandit Birju Maharaj, and so many of the great maestros. In the meantime, I want to stop here and ask you to join me and just give your pranams to two of the greatest legends and pillars of Indian art who passed, three actually, who passed away recently, and just, you know, give your pranams to them and wish them happy journey onwards. And those three are, of course, Saraswati herself, Lata Mangeshkar, Pandit Shiv Kumar Sharma, the great Santoor Maestro, and Shringar Mani of all times, Pandit Birju Maharaj. So please give them all our pranams. And so these were the people in whose company I moved around the world. So the topic of the day, while sitting and waiting for a plane or a train or riding a car, was always music. So, and always art. I listen to this tihai, or listen to this chakrada, or listen to this bandish. And so that was one of the greatest time in my life, and some of the most important learnings that I received when it comes to music was at that time. I'm sorry to have rambled on.
Thank you, sir. So we've all heard that you learned to play the tabla from your father,
Yes.
right?
Oh.
So is there any distinct memory of the father's some talim? And did the informal teaching come in the way of your training?
Yes, my father is my teacher, and he is the one who laid the foundation when it came to me addressing the tabla and how to establish my relationship with that instrument. But I would say that there are others who also occupy the same place of reverence in my life as my father, whether it is Ustad Hirakwa Khan Sahab, or Ustad Afaq Hussain Khan Sahab, or Wajid Hussain Khan Sahab, or Amir Hussain Khan Sahab. These are great maestros who have inspired me. Pandit Kishan Maharaj, Pandit Shyamta Prasad ji, they've all been, I would call them my mentors or my teachers in a way, because you cannot shy away from incredibleness. It is just there, and you have to one day just embrace it. You cannot just say, no, I won't do that because I'm doing this. Because you should realize that this, when you say this, you actually box yourself away. This should not be this or that, or them and us. That's not what it is. You know, it's all. It's a universal thought process. That is, so for me, tabla, and I was watching my father. He was never critical about that. Whenever I wanted to, take some information from some other maestros and utilize it and inject it into my playing and performance, that was actually appreciated by my dad. There was no, earlier on when I was like 10, 11 years old, he used to say that concentrate on the basic foundation that I'm giving you. That should be good enough for you to be able to move on forward. And so don't scatter yourself too much. At that point, he used to say that. But afterwards, it was all right with him that I was, and Pandit Kishan Maharaj would come home, and Ustad Rakha Sahab would come home and stay. And so I got really a lot of great chance to learn. So I must say that my father is my teacher, my guru. But there are others, dharam gurus around who I've mentioned, and I feel that their chubby, in some ways, I hope, is inside of me, that I'm able to express and pay proper respect and justice to who they are and what they represent and what they have given me as blessing.
Thank you so much, sir.
You just fooled me.
Sorry.
I thought I was going you this way, this way, this way, this way. Now it's this.
Sir, thank you so much. We have seen a video wherein you have discussed about students inspiring their gurus. It actually left me a lot to desire and think about. Can you please elaborate on that?
हमारे हिंदुस्तान में एक कहावत है कि गुरु एक बहता हुआ दरिया है, जो उसके अंदर नॉलेज है वो सब एक बहता हुआ दरिया है, और एक स्टूडेंट के ऊपर डिपेंड करता है कि उस दरिया में से वो कितना पानी निकालेगा, एक कप या एक बाल्टी या जो भी है. I give you an example. I'm sitting in a room and I'm practicing. And my father is sitting with my mother and they are both reading newspapers. It was interesting to see them sitting there, not talking, but reading newspapers. It's like the old version of today's cell phones. So, and I'm practicing and I'm hoping that he put this newspaper down and tell me something to do. But no information. So I'm practicing. Suddenly, I do something that is out of the ordinary, something that I wasn't supposed to do. Not wrong, but just something that by accident happened. Suddenly the paper drops. He gets up and runs and quickly walks to the edge of the door into my room and says, फिर से. Now I am wondering what was it that I did that I'm supposed to do फिर से. But in any case, I try, and then obviously it is not the same, but the spark has been lit. The switch has been turned on. And he looks at me and says, okay, aisa tha, abhi now do this, abhi ye karo. And then suddenly it's like Niagara Falls. Just waves of information coming at me. And I'm like, slow down. But there's no slowing down. The Guru has just been turned on. The brain has been just psh, and the Guru is just giving you all this information because you just inspired him to take your hand and walk you on that same path that you just put your first foot on as fast as possible forward. So I inspired him by my blunder, whatever that was, to be able to teach me. So there's a basic nutshell example, and this is true everywhere. That's why when you, in the old days, when you went to the ashrams or Guru's house or Gurukul, and you were there, you'd be practicing, and for 3 days, 4 days, a week, 10 days, 2 weeks, the Guru would not even pay any attention to you. But suddenly one day, he will come and he will say, ye astai gao, ya ye gat bajao, ya ye chand chalo. Suddenly, and you wonder why suddenly this happened. And you don't realize that you, while you were practicing, you did something that opened up a whole chain of events, a whole chain of thoughts in the Guru's head that suddenly made him come to you. Because otherwise the Guru is sitting there and the student is like, yeah, just kind of biding time. And the Guru is like, nothing is coming into his head to pass the information to you. Because there is no, a point when continued straight becomes a line, correct? So it's that point has not, that pin has not been put on the page to continue the line. So someday you do that and you put the pin there and the Guru suddenly goes and information starts flowing, and then the line continues. A line is a continuation of a point. So that happens. So that's what I mean when I say that you must inspire the Guru, and the Guru must look at you at that moment and say, yes, he's worthy or she's worthy. And so let me give this responsibility, because realize one thing, when the Guru is teaching you and giving you this information, that's a huge responsibility that is being passed on to you. The purity of that pristineness of that information, for you to guard, for you to cuddle and move forward as carefully as possible. That's a huge responsibility. And so here's another thing that I want to just say. There's a lot of people who, this is maybe a criticism of teacher-student relationship. For that, I really beg your forgiveness, whoever's listening. But we have this tendency of wanting to accept or make students left and right. I've been with maestros who say, oh, ye mera shagird hai, oh, wo mera shagird hai, oh, ye mera shagird, ye mera shagird hai. I mean, in other words, like, all these are my students. But what happens is that Guru maybe sees that student once every 6 or 7 months when he visits that town, or not at all. So that Guru-Shishya relationship hasn't been established, but the Guru will claim that he's my student. And the student will say, I am so-and-so student. How long have you studied with that teacher? Oh, I've studied for 10 years. Okay. In the meantime, in 10 years, he has seen the Guru maybe 10 times. And maybe for an hour or 2. So in 10 years, he's maybe had 20 hours with his Guru. And he feels that he studied for 10 years. Very bad, very wrong. So what's happening there is that when you say, I am, say, Ustad Allah Rakha's student, and you've only seen Ustad Allah Rakha maybe 10 times in 5 years, and you say that in some small baitak where there's music going on, and somebody says, oh, you're Ustad Allah Rakha's student, okay, let's play something. And then you sit down to play, and you really make a fool of yourself because you don't have any information. And when that happens, you don't look silly or stupid for yourself, but you put a black spot on your Guru. So that is something that you must be aware of. That should not happen. And so learning is an ongoing process. And for me, for instance, I never officially accept a student. One time, maybe in my delirium, I may have accepted one when I was very young and I did not understand the enormity of it. But I never accept a student. They are all fellow students like I am. And as a senior member, I'll share information with them. That's it. But they are not my student. They are my guru brothers. And so maybe that's a cop-out. Maybe that's my way out. But what I'm basically trying to say is that being a guru is a major responsibility, but being a student is even more of a burden than you can possibly imagine. So take being a student very seriously. In other words, you go to study with your teacher, you get your lesson an hour, whatever it is, and you come home and you close your book, and then you will pick it up the next time you go to see your guru. That's bad. You've got to give that guru a chance to be able to get inspired enough to teach you. That will not happen if what point was established when you first saw your guru has not been continued as a line onwards. So you must do that. That's all.
Final question.
Oh,
I'm sorry for that. We have over 20,000 students studying in SNBP who are unfortunate to join us today.
and you know all of them by name, right?
No. That's just a rough estimation.
Okay.
Can you please share your message to all of us?
Well, most of this was, I presume, message. But the most important message that I can say is be proud of being an Indian. This is the country with one of the greatest cultures in the world, one of the most ancient intelligence in the world. It is unparalleled, I have to say. And therefore, I have to also point out that we as Indians are keepers of one of the greatest music tradition in the world. You know, in the 1960s and 70s, India was considered a third world country. But all over the world, it was appreciated as #1 country in one aspect, and that was art and culture. People used to come from all over the world here to study Indian music. They used to come and go to ashrams to study yoga, to meditate, to find themselves. They used to do that here. It's only now in the last 25 years that we have also become an economic power. But it's all culture that defines us. It's all culture that makes us stand at a pedestal that is higher than anything else in the world. And people knowing us through our culture, in those days, even though we were a third world country, they appreciated us, they revered us, they loved us, and they honored us. So be a proud Indian, but remember that your responsibility as a proud Indian is to nurture and preserve our culture, our tradition.
Sir, I just wanted to say that it's an honor, a privilege even, to share the stage with a living legend such as yourself.
You've been very kind. Thank you so very much. It is my honor and pleasure to be sitting amongst you. And I hope that in some ways we have established a contact with each other, and that point of contact will continue as a line forward.
Thank you so much, Zakir Bhai. I think there is one child, Siddesh, has been wanting to ask you a question.
Yes,
His wild card entry.
he needs a mic.
Ustadji, how did you like our school?
Oh, I loved your school. It is amazing. It's beautiful. It's fantastic. And the tea was fantastic. But for some reason, it was from Mars. It was green. But also very good. And the Karanji was fantastic. It was beautiful. But also one other thing I have to say, I'm not Ustadji. I'm Zakirji. If that's okay, you can say that. Right?
Zakirji.
Yeah, it sounds perfect. It sounds great coming from you. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you so
And
much.
I hope to come to the school again and to go to the other 10 schools if and when I'm allowed to visit.
Thank you so much, sir, for patiently responding to all the questions of our children.